So, hello and welcome to Kitty Talks. We share inspirational life stories that empower you to basically do your Dharma. And today's episode is going to blow you out the water. I've just been having the most amazing conversation already with Winston. And this man inspires me so much. I'm just going to read a little from his bio because I just thought it was beautiful. So, Winston Clements, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Oh, this is going to be such a good conversation. You in your bio, it says you were predicted to live a life of isolation and pain due to a rare bone disorder that has stunted your growth. And it's caused your bones to be extremely fragile, fracturing more than 150 times by the age of 12. Despite your stature, which is 3 foot tall, and use of a wheelchair, Winston has taken a stand for a quality of life that knows no limits. And I absolutely adore that, Winston. And I've got already massive goosebumps. Winston is a speaker, trainer, and he empowers audiences worldwide to break through their own barriers. And his mission is to inspire 1 billion people, hope you heard that right, to unleash their human potential. And I am so chuffed to have you on the podcast, Winston. Thank you so much for joining us.
I am so excited to do this. We've been talking about this for a while, so it's good. It's good to finally be here.
Absolutely. Winston and I met probably back in May, didn't we? We had dinner together and there wasn't really kind of a dull moment. Like we literally just talked.
I think our food got cold.
Absolutely. But Winston, I was been so excited about having you on the podcast because I touched on this literally right at the beginning before we came on. But, your story is so empowering and so inspiring, and you travel around the world speaking, empowering people to let go of their limitations, and I would love for you to share with us your journey, your story, because I think I said this, right at the beginning, in the kind of body lottery terms, you probably haven't won the lottery in that sense, and I'd love to know how you managed your mindset to get you where you are today, because your Dharma journey has been inspirational, the people you've met and connected to, but how did you get over that initial, you must have had that kind of, oh shit, what do I do type of moment?
Yeah, and I think the thing is you can never fully get over something as profound as being born with brittle bones disorder, right? And the way I compare it, because I talk a lot about resilience, and it's a quality that I realized that I built up over time. And the good news for anyone who's listening is, because it's something that we can build up, almost like going to the gym and working on your muscles, we all have that opportunity to, on day 1 of the gym, not look amazing, but on day 50 or day 60, you can look a little bit better than you did 2 months ago. So with my story, like you said, I didn't win the body lottery, although I think my face is quite cute.
Yes, absolutely.
And so, just taking you back a little bit to my childhood, even when I was born, I actually experienced fractures during the birth itself.
Whoa.
Yeah, so really unpleasant. I don't know if you've ever experienced a fracture at all,
I fractured
Kitty.
my finger.
Yeah,
and that
painful,
was
isn't it?
literally the bit popped out the bone, and oh my god.
Yeah. So I used to actually, funnily enough, I've never fractured a finger. My fractures
Everything
tended
else.
to be, everything. Everything's more serious, like an arm or a leg or ribs. Collarbone was a popular one, and it wouldn't even be anything high impact. I wasn't playing rugby or anything. It would be in everyday situations. There'd be. I remember an example where a relative, an uncle of mine, who was visiting us from another country. Because I was really young. I hadn't seen him before, basically, and he came to the house. and he was excited to see me. Presumably he'd heard about me and stuff like that, and was excited to meet his nephew, right?
Mm.
And he came up to me, and in a very loving way, just went to pick me up, just how you would with a child, who's 6 years old, sorry. And when he picked me up, he actually dislocated my shoulder and broke my arm.
Oh my God. And at that age, they didn't
So you can
know.
imagine.
Did they
Yeah,
know it? They didn't know at that age then you had this brittle bone disease.
they knew they knew about the disease, but I don't think anyone ever imagines that you could injure somebody that badly, a child that badly, just by picking them up. So he was being careful, but it's just that I was so fragile at the time. So screaming in agony, had to be rushed into A&E, had to I don't remember the details. I probably had to have surgery for that. And now thinking back, I'm wondering, it just makes me feel really sad, in a way, for people who tried to interact with me back in those days, because they didn't really have an easy way of approaching me. And that sort of carried forward into school. I was in situations where at school, teachers would tell the other kids, "Oh, be careful, don't play with him too much because you might injure him." And so there were several of those situations. And I think, just to kind of fast forward, and then we could come back and dive into a few more things. I managed to get through school, get through university, and ended up working for corporations in IT. I'm a bit of a tech geek. I think we were talking about Facebook ads last time we met, and kind of sharing a bit about that. And then I guess it got to a point where I wanted to use some of the lessons, some of these stories of resilience, some of the challenges that I've overcome, to hopefully share and to teach people that they too can overcome whatever situation they might be facing. Because I think adversity is very transferable. Just because mine is physical, yours might be emotional, somebody else's might be financial or relationship. The lessons are very transferable. So I'm hoping to be that vehicle of saying, hey, you know what? If this little guy in a wheelchair can actually get out there and do some stuff, like reach 1 billion people, then
I was going to say, do
perhaps
some
you have
stuff. So you want to inspire a billion
then
people.
maybe we all have an opportunity.
Yeah. 1 billion people to unleash their full human potential. That's quite a goal. How did you come up with that?
Yeah, I think for me, it's we hear a lot about setting big goals. And I remember initially I'd said 1 million people. And I was working with a coach at the time who said, why did you come up with 1 million? Is it just a number that you like, or what was it about 1 million? Does it actually resonate with you? And I was like, funny enough, it doesn't resonate with me enough. I feel like it needs to be higher. And so in the end, I decided I wanted to have a global impact. And for me, 1 million is significant, but it's not global enough. And so I ended up pushing for the billion. And, hopefully by sharing with you, Kitty, and sharing with your audience members, then can bring me that little one step closer to that big number.
And are you measuring it? Because, podcast, we're 10,000 people just on this podcast. So you want to put
All right. Okay.
Yeah, put them in.
Yeah, I think I need to do better with my tracking. Yeah, definitely need to do better with my tracking. Yeah. I'm gonna go and add the 10,000 in there.
And you said that you really took the traditional path in a way. You went to school, you went to university, you found yourself working in IT. When did you know that actually that wasn't enough and that you wanted to serve humanity?
Yeah, and I think it was by accident, really, when I look back on it. I'd like to say this was all part of a big plan, and, I knew I was always going to do this. And I think on some level, intuitively, I felt that I could give more to the world, because I've always been that person who, even when I'm out in the street, because I'm fairly independent, I drive a car, I travel a lot for work. I think we met when I was
Mm.
down in Hampshire to work with a client. So I do get around, and in those journeys, in those situations, I meet with so many people, and they're curious because it's not very normal to see somebody who is in my container that does what I do. Um, and what I started to realize was I actually do talk to a lot of people, a lot of strangers, really, because people just feel comfortable in approaching me. And I can almost look back and see that when I speak to them and say, "This is who I am. This is what I do. This is my story." I could see almost like the light bulb moment flash for them,
Mm.
um, and I could see them, feeling really. Well, I can't say for sure, but I felt I was empowering them in some way,
Mm.
just by showing them what is possible, right? Because we all have these limited beliefs, we all have them around our finances, relationship, careers, purpose, all these things. Um, and sometimes you need that sense of perspective. You need to see somebody else, maybe somebody who doesn't have the same background as you, or somebody who is from what you perceive to be a disadvantaged group, right? Like somebody who's disabled, or somebody who's just different, a migrant, whatever. Um, and so what that made the penny drop for me was I started to think, well, if I'm having this kind of impact on people, but on a one-to-one basis, I wonder what kind of impact I could have, with an audience or with a
Mm.
bigger platform. Um, and I think that's when I started toying with, how to get my message out to a bigger audience. Um, and then the other thing that kind of, maybe you could call it serendipity. In that time, I was working for a corporate job, and they started to ask me to do a lot more presentations. So these were just corporate uh, presentations that I had to give regularly to clients that we were working with. And I remember I wasn't really a fan of that side of things. I was, like I said, an IT geek, love working
Mm.
with computers. Um, didn't really have, I wasn't really comfortable doing the presentation, soft skill side of things. So I remember I did my first presentation and it was rubbish, it was shit. Um, and then I thought, I don't want to keep doing these rubbish presentations, so I'm going to get some help. And so I went to something called Toastmasters,
Yes.
which you may have heard of.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm. And, for whoever's listening, Toastmasters is a public speaking meetup. So you can go there, you can learn how to craft a speech, learn how to deliver a speech, and basically share your message with an audience. Um, and so I did that. And when I joined Toastmasters, I again met somebody there who said, well, who really loved my story, who really loved my presentation. And he said he could actually see me doing, reaching people on a bigger platform than Toastmasters. Um, And so he kind of encouraged me to apply for a TED Talk,
Oh,
which I did.
nice.
Yeah, and I
And you
think we
got in
talked about
straight
this.
away, didn't you?
Yeah, I got in straight, and I was horrified because I was kind of just doing it to shut him up because he kept asking me to apply for a TED Talk, and I just kind of did it to say, look, I applied, and they didn't give
Yeah,
it to
yeah.
me. Oh well.
And they did.
And I actually did, yeah, they did, and I actually did my TED Talk in Chichester.
Yeah, that's
Um,
that's right. Chichester's where I live, and I've been trying to do a TED Talk here for years.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No worries.
um, maybe you'll get one in London. I've been trying to do one in London for a long time. And yeah, so I kind of did the TED Talk, and I was fortunate that when it came out, it got shared a lot by people in my network. And then from that, I started having organizations reach out to me and say, "Hey,
Wow.
Winston, could you come and do your TED Talk um, for our internal conference or for our staff away day," and those kind of things. And that's basically how I slowly started getting into professional speaking.
Mm.
Um, and then what I realized once I had a taste for it was like, oh my God, I'm having such an amazing time. I feel like making a difference in a more meaningful way than anything I've ever done in my IT career. I'm reaching people, I'm helping them, and I couldn't even get paid for this. It doesn't even feel like a job. So, for me, I knew that I'd definitely found something that I wanted to explore further. And also because it would also be another way of helping me reach that 1 billion target which I'd set myself. So it was just win-win-win. Yeah.
See, what you're describing, Winston, is what we talk about in my Dharma group, which is how you followed your breadcrumbs. So what I mean by that is you literally had signposts, didn't you? You literally had guides sort of saying, come and do this and come and do that. And initially you're a bit resistant. And then, of course, once you started to enjoy it, another breadcrumb would pop up and off you'd go and do that. And obviously now you've got momentum and it's rolling. And we talk about how your Dharma unfolds, you see, when you have the courage to go towards it. Like the next piece of the puzzle is unveiled, and it's such a great story. And I love the fact that now you've got the momentum because you can see the impact it's having on other people. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I presume that sense of fulfillment just really makes you want to do it more.
It does. And one question I get asked a lot is, like, what is your proudest I guess moment in terms of my speaking career? Because I've had a bit of a rapid rise. I only did the TEDx about 18 months ago. But since then, I've done a ton of events, corporate gigs, conferences. So I've been really fortunate to do so much in such a short space. But to that question about my proudest moment, it's actually when I got a message. And actually, this message came in, I think it came in on the morning before I gave my TEDx talk in Chichester. It was just a random message on Facebook, because I also post Facebook videos from time to time. And it was a message from somebody who wasn't a connection of mine. We're not friends on Facebook. And I can't remember the kid's name, but it was a 14-year-old boy. And he said because my profile on Facebook is public, where I share the videos, he said, I always tune into your profile. I used to post a regular weekly video. Every Tuesday at 8, I always tune into your profile to watch your video because it inspires me so much. And then he also went on to tell me that he'd been getting bullied at school. And just by seeing, he was getting bullied because he was different for whatever reason. He didn't fit in to his particular group. He wasn't one of the popular kids. And so he was a target because of that. And then he said, just by watching my videos, it just made him feel so empowered, and it made him believe that somebody from a background that isn't perceived to be popular or, not one of the traditional cool kids at school, still has an opportunity to get out there and have an impact and help a lot of people and be smiling all the time. He said, you smile so much. And I was like, oh my God, this is to this day, I think that's the most rewarding thing that's ever come through, more than any gig or conference that I've done so far.
Beautiful. Yeah, absolutely. When you think about that ripple effect that you're causing in the world, and it's worth it alone just for that little boy, who could have,
you don't know who you're helping.
Yeah, absolutely. So what would you say to our audience? Everyone who listens to this podcast, they kind of have a deeper understanding of, they have a purpose. They know that they have a purpose, and that purpose in some shape or form is to help other people. But they're nervous, they're stuck, they don't think they're good enough. They probably 90% of the population, we probably tell ourselves that we're not good enough, and who am I to do this? And what would your advice be for that person?
Yeah, try and give you some practical tips. So I can relate to that, by the way, and I think that's for anybody who's looking to step into their purpose. It's not easy because we're conditioned to fit into society's way of working. There are systems in place, and if you're one of those people that wants to color outside the lines, then it's difficult for you because there's not many pioneers who are doing things differently. And so the way I can relate to it is when I was trying to step away from corporate and into speaking. Because for me, I'd always thought of myself as I'm going to have this career in IT, going to work my way up, the traditional way, and then, at some point retire or maybe start a business and then take it easy later on in life.
The traditional path.
The traditional path. Um, and so just to kind of give some practical tips that help me sort of shake off the fears of stepping into my purpose. Number one was to let go of my ego. Because a lot of the time we talk about fear of, like you say, some people are not sure whether they should start a business, whether they should become a speaker, whether they should go traveling, whatever that passion is for them. And on face value, we think that this is fear that's stopping us from doing it. But I believe it's a bit more complicated than that. I think it's actually ego, because the ego comes into it when you think, to use my example, initially I didn't want to go on the stage because I thought, well, I just did a crappy presentation at work. I'm not going to go up there and embarrass myself again. And it's the same thing, why should I start this business, or why should I go traveling, or why should I get into that relationship when, the last relationship was painful? I don't want to get hurt again. So your ego is protecting you all the time. And I think what helped me with this particular thing was to move from a place of self and into service.
Beautiful.
Yeah, so then it became that me being on the stage is no longer about Winston. It's no longer about how do I sound? Am I giving a presentation that is perceived to be a good presentation? Am I happy with how I'm dressed, or what are people saying about me? It's no longer about that. My mission when I'm on the stage is to serve the audience. It's all about the audience. It's all about giving that value, like in the example of the 14-year-old who messaged me on Facebook. Yeah, even if you speak to 100 people and only one person gets something, then that's great. I've done my job. And I think that's been a massive thing for me in terms of basically knowing that it's more than about just Winston. Because we tend to be the centers of our own universes, basically.
Absolutely. Such a great point.
Yeah, and so it's how do you step away from that? And I think what you do here is incredible, because I believe purpose is an amazing way of, distancing yourself from self and into that bigger purpose, that bigger legacy and impact that you want to leave on the world. So for me, that's a top tip for sure.
That's a really great tip. And it's so true, because we get so stuck in our own shit, excuse my French, don't we? Like, we're not, we're scared about this, or we're scared about that, or we're scared, or we're not good enough, or whatever else. And it's so valid. If you think about how many of those little boys you've helped that you don't even know about. Okay, yes, you know about that one boy. And when you look at it like that, it just moves you through anything you're holding on to about yourself. And it really, really motivates you to. And I think, my story, Winston, but that's why I do what I do, because it's about consciousness shift. It's about the world understanding everybody's got something they can contribute, and we've got to do something to help this planet. So the sooner we wake more people up to doing their dharma and uncovering their purpose, the better. Yeah, come on, people, there's work to do. And I think the byproduct here is, because if you're listening to this, like, hopefully you'd agree, Winston, but I would never go back. Like, the freedom that we've got now, the sense of achievement, the sense of satisfaction that, you and I get to experience because we've moved through that fear. That's the payback. The way I look at it is, we can create our heaven on earth and serve and help other people at the same time. And as we do that, our life gets better and better and better.
Yeah, no, totally agree. I was listening to, I think it was another podcast, but he gave a really good analogy where he said, the way he likes to think about any challenge or any situation where you're trying to step up. So whether it's, moving from employment into maybe running, stepping into your passion, or going traveling, or doing that thing that you've always wanted to do, but you've put it off. So the way he sees it, it's almost like, you know, going through a jungle. And it's such a silly, simple analogy, but I love it for some reason. And he says, you know, you're on one side of the jungle. Um, you know, your goal, your ambition, your dream life is on the other side. And, you know, you have to cross the jungle to get to that thing that you want. Um, and most people are so afraid of stepping into the jungle because, of course, it is true that in the jungle there are bad things in there. And you know, it's not going to be all plain sailing. Um, but the rewards, like you say, from getting, you know, going in there, you know, fighting whatever it is that you have to fight and coming out the other side, even if you're carrying a few scars, the rewards are so amazing and the fulfillment is so high that it will make you wonder why you never did it sooner.
And it's the hero's journey, isn't it, really, if you think about it? Like all of us, once we understand that, you know, we are on our own journey, we are on our own hero's journey, you know, and there are going to be tough moments that will decide you and will wake you up. But like you said, you know, it's the Star Wars analogy of Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader, and he discovers that it's him basically that he's fighting. You know, that internal struggle that we have with ourselves, basically.
Yeah, and you don't have to do it alone either, I don't think, because I think one thing that I've learned is also being open to receiving help. Um, and it's a funny thing, you know, in terms of, and again, I think this is ego related. We're not very good at asking for help. You know, many people are open to help. I'm open to helping as many people as I can. But as soon as I'm stuck, you know, my default reaction is to try and bash my way through that problem, even if it's something that is not my strong area, is not my strong point. I'll be much better off, you know, giving somebody a phone call and trying to talk through it, or just hiring somebody to help me. So, you know, even when you're in that jungle, don't feel like you have to be in there alone. There's always other people that you can bring in and actually build that team around you so that while you're in that jungle, you have people watching out for those things that you cannot see because you're looking in a particular direction. Um, so that's been something that's really helped me accelerate as well. Just being okay that I've got blind spots and being okay that I have people in my network who help me see those blind spots and call them out for me.
And do you have a coach? Are you working with somebody at the moment?
I do. I have many. Yeah.
I just think it's important for people to know that you and I have coaches. You know, it's like we help and coach others, but we also have coaches ourselves. Because I think, you know, can I ask why you have
Yeah.
a coach?
Yeah. So I've started coaching, working with coaches about 2 or 3 years ago. Um, Initially, probably not for the right reasons. I was working with, sorry, I had a close friend of mine. She's since relocated to South America, but she had a really good experience with a coach and she recommended him. I didn't really know what I wanted in life at the time, but I just thought, yeah, this particular coach seemed to work for my friend, so I'm just going to sign up and see what happens. Got nothing to lose. So I didn't really have a focus in particular for that coaching, my first coaching engagement. And then we did it. It was like a 3-month coaching course. And initially I was quite skeptical, like most people are around coaching, thinking, oh my God, what a waste of money that was. They're telling me things I could have Googled and all of this stuff. Um, to 3 months later, seeing how much progress I made once we, you know, identified what I wanted to do. And once I had that external person pushing me and pressurizing me and holding me accountable. Um, and since then, it's just become almost like, wow, I feel like I always need to have that external mentor or coach to, you know, and I say this all the time, to just basically call me up on my own BS. Um, because I think we all have BS. Some people more than others. I have a lot. um, and I just need somebody to say sometimes, you know what, Winston, that is a load of shit. Stop it.
Just stop it.
Stop doing that. Yeah, and do this thing instead. Stick to your goal. Stick to what you're good at. Outsource the things that are not for you. Stop playing the victim, because you might imagine a speaker who talks about resilience never plays victim. He does
We all have
sometimes.
our moments.
We all have our moments. And yeah, that I believe just having that guidance, that additional guidance, brings out an extra 20-30% out of me, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I would definitely agree. If you're listening to this, you're on the fence about getting support, like, it accelerates your growth. It so accelerates your growth because there's nowhere to hide, I think, when you're working with somebody in a group setting or in a one-to-one setting. And then you start to be able to get to the stage where you can call yourself on your own bullshit. Like I was saying to you this morning, I said to Winston, I was having a, oh, why me moment this morning. And of course, I caught myself doing it. And I was like, for God's sake, pull yourself together. You're supposed to believe in divine timing, for God's sake.
But so true. We all need it. We all need it. And yeah, I think one of the biggest barriers, like I touched on, for coaching is people think it's all about money or it's some kind of scam. Because it is true, there are good coaches and there are bad coaches out there. So you need to be discerning.
Yeah, be careful.
About your investment. Do your research. But I think most importantly for me is I've gotten the most out of coaching when I've liked the person who I'm coaching with. I've worked with a lot of coaches by now, and to be honest, all of them are really talented at what they do. But in particular, there were coaches who we just really got along. We just really clicked as humans. And they were not necessarily the most expensive coaches that I paid, or they were not necessarily the most talented or they didn't have the most prestigious titles. But because we had this rapport and because I liked working with them so much, I was giving 150%, Katie, all the time. I just wanted, I wanted to, it's like I wanted to impress them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, or make them proud. It almost becomes like a parental relationship, right? You know how you want to go and win the race on sports day because your dad is watching in the crowd, or get the A star because you know it's going to make your mom happy. It becomes that kind of situation. So yeah, definitely find someone that you like working with and who you like as a person.
Yeah, really good advice. So I want to leverage and harness our audience, Winston, to help and serve you, because you've been helping and serving so many people. Well, this big goal, this influencing 1 billion people, is not going to do itself. So how can my audience serve you and assist you in your big vision?
Yeah, I mean, they're already assisting me amazingly just by listening to this. And I think we've had an incredible conversation. And, for anyone who's listening, for sure, definitely share this episode out. If you got even one piece of value from this,
tag us both.
Tag us.
I love it when people tag me.
Tag me everywhere. Yeah, yeah. And I always respond to stuff. Like I try to be super engaged. So if I see a tag, then I'll jump on it and I'll say thank you and talk to anybody. And also just keep an eye out on my social media. Keep an eye out on my website. Are we going to share that stuff in the show notes?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
You can say now if you want to, but we'll definitely put it in the show notes as well.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'll just say the website. The website is winstonclements.com. And the reason you should keep an eye out for that is I post a lot of videos on there. And I also post the events that I have coming up. So it might be that I might be coming to speak, in a location that's near you. So, you can get to support me in person as well as on this podcast. And hopefully be a good opportunity to connect and have a conversation and maybe grab some dinner, just how me and Kitty did a few months ago.
Well, I can tell you won't regret it because it was a great conversation that we had. So, Winston, thank you so much. Like, I really enjoyed our conversation. And thank you for doing your thing. It's very empowering, very inspiring, and you're gorgeous, really gorgeous. So, such a lovely human being.
Thank you for having me, and we'll have to do this again.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Keep me posted if I can help and serve you in any way. Let me know. But guys, if you're listening to this, obviously go check out Winston, go follow him, go say hello, tag us in this in this Instagram world that we live in. And, you know, if you can think of a way that you can help Winston spread his message, then get in touch. You know, I'm not shy. I'm going to ask. I think what's the point in having a podcast if you can't leverage it to do more good in the world?
100% agreed.
But we'll see you next week with another amazing guest on Kitty Talks. But Winston, thank you very much for coming on. I appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. Have a great week.
Take care. See you soon. This podcast was sponsored by my Do Your Dharma course. Create a life so good that you pinch yourself. This 8-week online course demystifies Dharma and shows you how to tune in to why you're really here. Go to www.kittytalks.com/do your Dharma.